Welcome back to my channel. Before I get into the actual video, I just wanted to let you guys know that this is a collab with Ferret Tales. If you are not subscribed to her, you should absolutely already subscribe to her. I love watching her videos. She posts a lot of like crafty videos and ways to make things for your ferrets, like whether it's hammocks or little like crinkle tunnels, stuff like that. It's really cute, and she's super sweet. She also has an Etsy shop, which I have purchased items from her and I love them so very much. So make sure to definitely check out her channel at Ferret Tales, and please subscribe to her because she is the best. Also, at the end of this video there will be like a continuation video on her channel, so make sure to check that out as well.
So first, I just want to say thank you for having me on your channel. I'm really excited to be here. I feel like this collaboration is a long time coming. I think we've had, I know I've had a couple of people ask or suggest that we do a collaboration video together. So I'm really excited to do this video.
In this video, I wanted to talk about the reasons that animals should not ever be purchased as a gift during the holidays, because it is an extremely common thing to do to surprise someone. Even if you think you're doing the right thing and adopting a pet during the holidays, chances are it is not going to end up as well and as positive as you thought it was. So animals are not gifts, they are a lifelong commitment, and they require many years. Like, think of how long a dog, a cat, a ferret would live for. They are not just a present to give someone, just like as for a child or even adult, like when you get a new car, a toy, something, the novelty always wears off. And I've seen it in friends, I've seen it in even like family members of mine. Like, you get a new pet and eventually the novelty of that wears off. Same with like a toy for a child. Eventually they either will get over it and want something else, or they'll just throw it to the side and forget about it until the next time that they pick it up and want to play with it again. But an animal is a completely different story. Just because maybe the newness of the pet wears off and eventually you don't want to play with it as much, like, this is a living thing that needs to be fed, needs to have love, needs to be whatever, just all the things, all the requirements that they need. And also they require, you know, like vet visits, vet bills, things like that. And a lot of times people, I don't think of that at all, especially if you're getting like a puppy too. When you get a puppy, everybody is like, oh my gosh, this is the cutest thing in the world, and then, you know, it grows up and people tend to forget about them as much. I obviously love all animals since birth till when they're old and gray. I love them no matter what, but there are people that you get a puppy and the novelty of getting the little puppy wears off, and then it becomes a dog. And then going off of what I said with the novelty of them wears off, just the same way that it would wear off like a toy or new toy for a child, is that animals are absolutely not toys. Especially if you're getting a young animal. Like I said before, it's very common to surprise people with like a puppy. You need to realize that that is a baby animal, and I've seen so many children just, even if they don't think that they're abusing the animal, just the way that kids handle animals and like just throw them around as if they're nothing, just throw them around exactly as if they're a toy. So getting an animal for a child especially is just an absolute no in my book, in my brain. The next thing is that giving an animal as a surprise is generally also never a very good idea, just because, one, even though somebody may talk about how cute they think ferrets are, how cute they may think bunnies are, dogs, cats are, they might not actually want them or be prepared for the responsibility that they would need to take care of them. Also, if you surprise somebody with a gift, obviously chances are they don't have the proper like things at home for them right away. Meaning, like, say you just get somebody a puppy out of just like on a whim, they don't have food for the puppy, they don't have the proper, probably anything for the puppy, for the cat, for the dog, ferret, any animal.
I think another problem also with giving people pets, any pets, ferrets particular in this situation, as gifts is, what is their home situation like? Do you know their situation? Do they rent? Or do they live with their parents? Are they allowed to have ferrets? Do their landlords allow them to have ferrets or any kind of pets? Do their parents want them to have ferrets? I mean, there's lots of things to consider, and that's really a big one. What happens if they can't have a ferret or any animal as a pet? What if it's not permitted in their lease? What if their parents don't allow it? What happens to the ferret at that point? The likelihood that someone would be able to pack up everything they have and go move to another place just to be able to keep this animal that they weren't expecting to have in the first place is probably pretty slim to none. Most people can't really afford to make a decision like that on a whim without any kind of planning. That's just a lot to ask of someone. And so at that point, a couple of things is going to happen to that pet. They're either going to end up with someone else. So now the ferret's been given to someone who's been given to someone else who is probably equally not as in a position to take care of them potentially, or they're going to end up at the shelter. Either way, that person that you intended to give the ferret to as a gift, cannot keep the pet or the ferret, and now it has been passed on to someone else. And that to me is just as risky, and it's really unfair to the animal. So that's a lot of stress on an animal. Just leaving a pet store and going to someone's house is a stressful situation to a pet until they get acclimated. And then to add moving them a second time would just be even more stressful.
Also, bringing an animal home during the holidays is not a great idea because there's a lot more going on. There's a lot more chaos typically at home, much louder noises, and it's a lot harder to give the animal the one-on-one time that they would need if you have all these other responsibilities with just surrounding the holidays. There's always a lot more going on during the holidays, I feel like, at least for me, and it would be harder to give a new pet like the one-on-one time that they need and help them get acclimated to the home. Also, they would obviously need, depending on the age that you adopted them, they would need training. Like I said, a lot of people, I know I keep like reiterating puppies, but I just feel like puppies and kittens even are like a very, very, very common pet to get for like Christmas or during the holidays and stuff. And people don't realize that the second you bring them to their new environment, you have to begin training. You obviously have to teach them, potty training. You have to teach them depending on, I guess, if you allow them on the furniture. I allow my pets on the furniture, but some people don't. So you need to start that immediately. Also, a lot of the times during the holidays, animals can be bought as kind of like an impulse decision. So this one would most likely relate to ferrets, though it could obviously relate to cats and dogs and any other animal really. But a lot of people don't do the research into knowing that you actually can adopt ferrets because they aren't like commonly seen at shelters. Like me, when I got these guys, I didn't do any research like that either. So you're much more likely to just impulse buy at a pet store or something like that. So for example, I don't know, your boyfriend is really talking about how much he loves ferrets, has no experience in them at all. He just keeps talking about them. You're like, maybe it would be a good Christmas present to get him a ferret. So you're going to go to Petco, you're going to get him a Marshall's ferret, and then you're supporting the breeding mill or the breeding mill. So just take a lot of that stuff into consideration as well, that animals obviously should never be bought as an impulse decision, but if you do it, you're also probably supporting like a breeding mill, and that is not good.
So like you, all 4 of my ferrets came directly from the pet store as kits. I did not do a lot of research as far as shelters go when I got my ferrets. I did do a lot of preparation, and I didn't go out and get them impulsively, and they were not given to me as gifts. But I did not adopt any of my 4 ferrets. I love them. I wouldn't trade them for the world. But if I were to get any more ferrets in the future, I would definitely go through a shelter first and then a breeder second if I was looking for a baby ferret, and that's what I was just going for at that time. But at this point, I really feel strongly that I would go and get my ferret from a shelter.
Lastly, according to statistics, I will link everything in my description below. End of December to January is the most common time period for animals to be returned back into the shelter, and those phone calls actually start as early as the morning of January 26th, which means that a lot of people that received pets the day before on Christmas realize that they cannot commit to this animal, and they're returning it right back to the shelter. One of the saddest parts too is that a lot of shelters actually condone buying and adopting animals during the holidays, and will even set them at a much lower price or even give them away for free during the holidays to encourage people to adopt them, which to me makes absolutely no sense. And I'm just going to read something that I found on the PETA website. Actually, I know a lot of people have differing opinions on PETA, but I personally agree with them, and so I'm just going to read what they have to say about it. They wrote, when shelters offer up animals for free or for a pittance, they devalue them and encourage impulse adoptions by eager people who haven't considered whether they or their gift recipients are ready to invest the substantial amount of money, commitment, and care that the animals will need. And animals can be acquired as cheap gifts by people who can't afford to care for them. After the holidays, many of these present animals end up back at the shelter, or worse, sentenced to a life of isolation on a chain or in an outdoor pen or dumped on the street. And then something else that they said was, if your family is truly ready to commit to giving an animal a lifetime of up to 20 years of care, which includes veterinary visits, house training, food and treats, toys, bedding, exercise, playtime, and anything else that is needed, the best option is to take the entire family to the shelter when you adopt. That way you can ensure that the animal you choose is the right fit and that everyone is ready to make the commitment. Parents need to understand that young children are ill-equipped to care for an animal properly and that adults are legally responsible for the animal's welfare. And then this next part I actually think is a genius idea. I've never even thought of this. I never even realized that shelters offered like either gift certificates or just like somebody can call in and say that this person is allowed to use whatever, my money to adopt an animal. They said that if you know someone on your list is genuinely ready to adopt, prepared to commit a lifetime of care, and actively seeking a companion animal, opt to give a shelter gift certificate to cover the cost of an adoption. That way the recipient can choose an animal who best suits his or her lifestyle and can bring the new companion home after the holiday whirlwind dies down, or make up a gift basket of toys, treats, bowls, leashes, and other supplies so that the recipient can decide when it's the right time. I actually think that that is a great idea. I have never heard of that before, but I fully support doing something like that for a loved one that you know that is genuinely ready to commit, is a responsible adult, and somebody that really should be adopting an animal.
So there are thousands of ferrets that end up in rescues each year. They either end up there by being surrendered, or they end up being abandoned, left outside, or that they're just found, and they ultimately end up at a ferret shelter or a ferret rescue. There are approximately 86 ferret rescues in the United States, and I would love to tell you how many ferrets are surrendered in a year, but unfortunately, there is not any real statistics on this. There's just not. If you want to know how many dogs or cats are surrendered each year, that's like easy to find. But when it comes to small animals, all small animals, particularly ferrets, guinea pigs, rats, there is like no one number that I can give you because I've searched high and low, educational institutions, you name it. I've looked everywhere at SPCA, the Humane Society, all of it. And I could not find a statistic for this particular topic, how many ferrets or small pets are surrendered each year. By the time a ferret gets to a shelter or has been surrendered, they're either in bad shape, they're really sick, people can't afford the vet care, they haven't had time to take them out of the cage, so they're semi-aggressive. So while there's lots of ferrets in shelters, there's also lots of ferrets in shelters that cannot and will not ever be adopted out because they just aren't able to find people who are willing to care for them, either because they're really sick and that costs a lot of money, or because they have a lot of behavioral problems. But with that being said, there is a ton of ferrets that are at rescues that are 100% adoptable.
Another practice that I have actually seen and heard a lot more recently that shelters do is that they actually cut off all adoptions during the holiday period. So starting, I think maybe like December 1st-ish until like mid-January, they will not allow any adoptions. I think that you're still allowed to go see the animals and play with them and get a feel for if you might want to adopt or might want to adopt an animal, but you are not allowed to adopt them until after the holiday time period is over. That way it prevents people coming in as an impulse decision and then taking animals home as presents just so they can be returned a few days later.
So if for Christmas you wanted to get someone a present and you wanted it to be a ferret, or for their birthday, I would highly recommend that you do a search and find a shelter near you. I promise that there is a shelter within an hour or two, hopefully, of you. And if not, lots of shelters do these arrangements where they can figure out how to get a ferret to you if it's the right fit. And the shelter will take the time to vet the person that's getting the ferret, but they will also take the time to make sure that they are matching you or the person you're gifting this ferret to with a ferret that's right for you and your family. They will be able to tell you the behavioral characteristics of the ferret, if it's good with other pets, if it's good with other children. There's lots and lots and lots of benefits of adopting ferrets from shelters. It's like you're setting it up for a success. It's not that you're not going to be successful in adopting or in purchasing a ferret from a pet store. But if you're going to do it as a gift, it would just be, it's wonderful for the ferret. It's also wonderful for the family because these shelters are so dedicated in making sure that these ferrets find forever homes, legitimately forever homes, not forever for 30 minutes and you bring them back. But they do have a policy. I think a lot of them, if it doesn't work out, then they do recommend or they do require that you bring the ferret back to that particular shelter. But at the end of the day, if you were going to give someone a pet, particularly a ferret, I highly recommend that. I think the best gift that you can give them is the ability to pick a pet that works for them, that they bond with, that they're connected to, that fits in with their family. And if you do that in that way, it's a much more, it may not be a surprise, but it's a much more intimate, personal, and special kind of present, then maybe the surprise would be, because maybe that surprise is just not a good fit and it just isn't going to be the way that maybe you hoped it would. Thank you so much for having me on your channel. I loved it. It was super fun. I cannot wait to have you on my channel and we can keep this party rolling.
Okay, that is it. I hope that you guys learned something from this video. I hope that it brought to light a lot of the reasons that you should not adopt during the holidays. And yeah, please make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you guys so very much as always. And please, please, please make sure to watch the video on Ferret Tales channel and subscribe to her as well. Okay, love you guys so very much. I hope you have a wonderful holiday season.